Question, who designed it better, Azza or the Borg? Oh, come on. Who am I even kidding? Of course, Azza designed it better. I mean, they have RGB lighting. The Borg, no RGB lighting. Just a couple of dull colors here and there. Nothing fancy. You know, RGB makes things go faster, better. I mean, I bet if the Borg had RGB, then Starfleet wouldn't have even had a chance, and they just would have. But I digress. So today we're going to be looking at another case from Azza, and this one is the Cube 802. As you can kind of imagine, you understand where it gets the Cube name from. So yeah, this is the second case that I've gotten in the recent days. The first one I got was the Ragnarok, and these are two completely different cases that Azza's doing. You know, they have a lot of like budget-oriented, consumer, wallet-friendly type cases, and they, you know, have their drawbacks. They'll have more plastic, a little bit more gamer flair and stuff. And not to say that this doesn't have some gamer flair, but holy cats, this thing is a beast of a case. I mean, we're talking just a solid piece of work, really stable, absolutely no wiggle. But then we also have to talk about this fantastic design that Azza's done. So for starters, let's talk about the RGB lighting. So as you can see, I've been letting this thing roll. Guys, there is 366 lighting modes. Now, a lot of times I'll try to do like a video where I'll just show off all the lighting modes and I'll do some background. I can't do 360. That would be so forever. And I have a feeling that you guys are going to get the idea. So I'm just leaving this case here running during this entire video. Now, yeah, I'm going to be overlaying some screenshots of my build process and the closer looks. But you're going to get a good picture of all the different 366. So if you have it in auto mode, it just keeps cycling through the RGB modes itself. And if you want to choose one specific mode, well, they have a remote that you can easily use to change all the different modes. Now, the auto mode is going to cycle through all the different RGB modes that are there. So I don't think we're going to get through all 366, but they're there. Now, there is one little caveat to this, and you're going to kind of maybe start noticing it as the video progresses. So Azza includes two RGB controllers with this case, and they just look like a wire attached to a Molex connector, and that's it. And you can daisy chain from there. But you can only daisy chain about 5 of their lighting products per controller. Well, if we count it out, we've got 4 RGB fans in the front plus 1 in the back. That's already 5. But each light strip is kind of like one separate device. So 1, 2, and 3 in the back. There's a total of 8 RGB separate lighting products built into this case. And as a result, there is 2 RGB controllers. When you use the RGB controllers in the auto, you can kind of start seeing that these 2 controllers get a little out of sync from each other. And so that's one little downside about using the auto. Now, that being said, though, I wouldn't even leave it on auto. That's just a light storm of just craziness. So typically, if I had this case, I would be picking one of the modes and going with it. So just something there that to keep in mind. Of course, the reality is you can daisy chain these products and use RGB headers on your motherboard. And if you have a decent motherboard that has some of the more later features and stuff, a lot of them come with 2 addressable RGB headers. I've got the Aorus X470 Gaming 7, and yes, I have 2 addressable RGB headers, one at the top, one on the bottom. So I could just sync this to my motherboard lighting. But that's enough about lighting now. Let's talk a little bit about this build process. So when Azza designed this case, they've got this cube thing going on. You've got the build that goes on the one half, and then you've got the other half that is for your power supply and your cables. And one thing that's really cool about the cube build is all the cable management side is super easy. So for one, you don't really have to cable manage it. Just stuff those PSU cables down in there and you're kind of just done, because you're not going to see them and you're not going to really get your hands down in there to manage them very effectively anyway, and they're out of sight. You just can't see them. So that's super convenient. I mean, It makes the cable management side a breeze. I really like the cube design for that. It's very effective. It's kind of nice that for so many people, your power supply and your solid state drives aren't going to be something you're going to show off. So tuck them away in the back. Don't have to worry about them. Now, that being mentioned, though, don't forget to install your solid-state drive before you put your motherboard in, because unfortunately, all the connections for the solid-state are on the back side of the motherboard tray. Now, there's a little bit of space to the side where I feel like they could have put that mount on the side of the motherboard tray so that if you forgot and put your motherboard in first, like I might have done the first time, or not, I'll let you guys figure that one out. But then you could still just install the SSD to the side. But that's not the case here, and that was kind of one of those minor little design quirks I thought it would have been handy, but that's kind of understandable. You do have radiators and stuff in the way, and you would be seeing the mounting screws. So hiding it like that makes sense. When you get to the motherboard part, though, so one of the things I was worried about is when I'd put this motherboard in, there would be really tight space. And I have my Crossfire set up on top of that. But the motherboard fit in great, and they left plenty of room above and below it so that it slides in nice and easily and it's not super cramped. And they left enough room below so that my Crossfire setup fits really comfortably. I was very impressed with that. So that was a really good design choice. And there's one design choice I was not a huge fan of. That was the amount of cable management holes that they put in this thing. We only have the 2 slots on the side. And so everything that you've got, whether it be your little power connections and the power button connections, or any fan headers that are going out, they all kind of have to go through those 2 holes or over the top. If they would have just put a couple of slots along the bottom of the motherboard so you could put like your USB headers and stuff down there, that would have been nice. But this case is designed purely for looks. So there's no USB headers in the front. There's no extra audio jacks, none of that stuff. They didn't let that cram any of the design of the front. This is purely show. And quite frankly, I am okay with that because I hardly ever use my front USB headers. And if I had a case like this, it would be sitting on top of my desk where I can easily access my back ports. So for the way that they designed this, I'm totally okay with it. Now, that being said, it also might not have been too hard to put some USB ports right underneath here and the audio jacks next to the power button that's right here on the bottom. So it's a little bit of a misstep from Azza. It's just little things like that could have really, made this case not just pretty, but super functional. As it stands, it's still a really good case to build in, but it just misses that great mark ever so slightly. So the real question comes is how much you're going to pay for this guy. And that question I have not been able to answer. But I've done some research, and I'm taking a guess that this case will probably MSRP at around $250. Now, I'm not sure on that, though, so I can't say that's a definite thing. But I was doing some comparisons. I was looking up some different RGB cases. And so you've got some other comparable brands. The Cooler Master H500M is a pretty nice RGB case. Rosewell has one that has like 4 RGB fans in it. And Cougar, their Panzer Evo RGB, I believe it was. We've got tempered glass. We've got RGB fans. We've got some nice cases out there. And a lot of those cases are sub $200, running in the $150 to $200 range. So in that level, Azza might be a little bit pricier. But the thing about those other cases is while they have the RGB lighting, they are straightforward, traditional computer cases. There's nothing fancy about them. And you have Azza here putting everything they got into this really unique, just way outside of the box thinking design. On top of that, yeah, you may have 4 RGB fans in a lot of those other cases, or in the case of the Cooler Master, they only have the 2 200mm fans that are RGB. They even skimp on the back one and put just a plain old black fan in there, which drives me nuts. So Azza goes all out. We've got 8 RGB lighting devices to accent this case. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb and say that we've got a potential great value here. Now, I can't say that 100% for sure, so when I do a follow-up on my written review, when I see an MSRP site, I will link that in my website. So you can look up my website and find that review eventually when it goes live there. And if I haven't gotten an MSRP price, I'll just update it as soon as I see this guy in sale on the state side. But I'm seeing a potential good value on this case because it is solidly built. And it has a lot of RGB options built right into it, which is a lot compared to any other case. Style-wise, though, no two ways about it. Excellent, great style award from the Hardware Hounds. It's not even a question. This case is amazing. I think it is an excellent design. I wish there was more companies out here who would take big risk and give us something that's unique. The stand, that's what really does it too. We've got this cube that would look kind of awkward sitting as a box on your desk, but putting this stand to put it at an angle like this, brilliant, guys. Azza, what you've done with these last two cases is phenomenal. There's some room for improvement, but keep it up. This is what the case market needs. Guys, I hope you liked this review. I hope I highlighted and covered most of the points that you are looking for. Of course, if not, feel free to ask me some questions in the description below, and I will catch you later.